What's the key to smarter AI, end-to-end visibility, and supply chain resiliency? Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Bowman, Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Brain. Welcome to this presentation. Smarter AI starts with high-quality data presented by Shipio. Quick reminder, there will be a question and answer session at the end of this presentation. Audience members are encouraged to submit their questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. So, in today's volatile world, supply chains are under pressure to adapt fast or fall behind. Planning by itself is not enough. Execution has taken center stage. But most companies are flying blind, relying on fragmented systems and stale data that can't keep up with real-world complexity. And AI and automation fail when execution data is inaccurate, delayed, or incomplete. So today, we're going to break down why data quality is the hidden foundation of resilient AI-ready supply chains. Drawing from real-world examples like Renault's control tower, we'll see how mastering execution data transforms visibility from a buzzword into a real-time competitive advantage. With that, I'd like to introduce my speaker for today. Anand Medapalli is Chief Product Officer with Shipio. Anand has over 25 years of experience as a trusted advisor with leading companies in product strategies, commercial accounts, and asset planning decisions in transportation, supply chain, and financial services. Before joining Shipio, Anand was head of AI solutions at ServiceNow, following the acquisition of Element AI, where he was head of products. And prior to that experience, he worked at Blue Yonder as VP of Retail Planning Products. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Anand Medapalli for his presentation. Anand, take it away.
Thank you, Bob, for that kind introduction. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to have conversations such as these in this today's world. As Bob said, we are in unprecedented waters, and let us see what needs to be done in order to make sure that your supply chains are that resilient and anti-fragile. So let's talk quickly about Shipio. We are a leading real-time transportation visibility solution provider in the market. The statistics are there for you to see. We have been around for 10 plus years, and we work globally with a whole bunch of shippers and logistics service providers. We are, as much as I would like to say anything about ourselves, we have independent validation and verification of the fact that we are a trusted visibility provider. We are a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant, but more important than that is the fact that our customers like us and actually give independent reviews of our solutions, so much so that you see us as a great leader, etc. So we have been around, and our customers like us. Let's see. And the kind of customers that work with us are the who's who, and the world's leading brands across multiple industries, as listed on the screen. Very happy to talk about any of these. But we started our journey here in Europe, and we are a global provider for global shippers worldwide and logistics service providers. So. So our vision is very simple, actually. We believe that supply chains need to go beyond resilience, and to explain that very briefly, if you don't have any immunity, you're fragile. A common cold could knock you over. Resilience is if you take a flu shot and you're able to fight off that particular flu. Wouldn't it be great if your DNA has evolved now so that actually the next flu that comes along, you don't necessarily need a flu shot. You may have a runny nose, but you're able to withstand it because your DNA has evolved. So this is a term coined by Nassim Taleb, the author of the famous books like Black Swan and Anti-Fragility. And he argues that systems, individuals, governments, organizations need to be anti-fragile in a very, very volatile world. So our vision is to build anti-fragile and sustainable supply chains. And the way we go about doing that, and again, going back to Taleb's definition of what makes one anti-fragile, there are three aspects to it, right? One is You need symptoms. You need to know that you're falling sick. In other words, in our world of supply chain, you need to know that something could be going wrong and to take action. That's your information. You need timely information in your hands without much latency in it. Now, it's one thing to be given all this information, but what will it take for you to engage with it? So if all of you know how many disruptions you're dealing with in a day. If there are tens of thousands of disruptions or even hundreds and thousands of disruptions a day, you physically can't get to all of them. What are the top five that you must solve first? That is engagement. So how do you engage with all the information that is coming across to you? And then finally, once you have all this information and you're able to engage with it, how do you resolve this? Do you believe the system could take care of it and resolve some for you? Do you yourself have to get into that? That is the kind of a learning and ability to resolve is what makes you anti-fragile. So you need all three in order to be able to deal with the volatility and uncertainty in this world. And we've been at it for a while now. At Shipio, we've been doing this for a while right now, and I want to demonstrate it with the control tower, as it's called, that Renault actually built with our help. So Renault is an automotive company out of Europe, as all of you know. They have been using Shipio as their real-time visibility provider, particularly for their inbound logistics. This is logistics that manages parts, etc., that come from their suppliers to their 28 odd plants all across Europe. And they actually use our data in real time to make quick decisions. So this is a control tower that they built. What is this control tower doing? Actually, this is what you're seeing is a video of a real life situation where a particular truck with critical shipments was stuck at the border between Turkey and the European Union at Bulgaria. And it was just border congestion, nothing untoward, just border congestion. But by the time the truck driver came out of that border, his legal driving hours finished, so he couldn't drive the truck anymore. Shipyard detected this and alerted the plant manager that the part you're waiting for is going to be delayed. And then the control tower took action from there on, took over from there. And what you're seeing on the screen is it goes and figures out, okay, what is it that I can do to expedite that shipment? Should I lift it by air? Should I send a van or a car to pick it up, or various things? In this particular case, and then it validates all of those, that those are all feasible options. Then it figures out what is the cost. And then based on all the conditions that it knows, it recommends a particular alternative saying, okay, do this. In this particular example, even though it's not in the video, it actually was that the carrier was able to dispatch another driver who was nearby who could still drive and quickly drive the truck in time to the plant. So this notion of being able to take action, so there was information, your stuff is delayed. There was engagement with that information to saying, what is something critical stuck there? Do I need to take action? Yes. There was resolution by dispatching a driver to expedite that instead of wasting tens of thousands of euros trying to get it on air, for instance. So therefore, this control tower thing that we've been working with, along with Google, might I add, with Renault, actually help them become anti-fragile with respect to their inbound logistics, if you will. So we've been at it for a while, so we know what we're talking about. And if you don't believe me, just look at what to our host here, Supply Chain Brain, a while ago, the kind of interview that one of the VP of supply chains gave, where they acknowledge the fact that we've been working with them, and they have been live with this for a better part of 3 years, 3+ years now. In October of 2022, they went live with this solution, so they've been using this proactively. And look at the numbers that they claim benefits from this. This is all published in that article that I referred to in November 24 that came out, that unfinished vehicles reduced by 50%, 260 million euros in inventory savings, etc. All publicly stated it based on that control tower that you saw. So what I meant to say is that you are anti-fragile, Renault, but guess what? We spend a lot of time with them. Guess what is the one topic they talk to us about? It's very rare that I speak with them about the control tower per se. It is literally, and in fact, all our other customers as well. We held a customer council we hold a yearly customer council, and that customer council, all others also said the same thing. One and only one thing is data quality. So As sexy an application as a control tower is, as wonderful a system as CPO is that is showing them real-time information about everything that is there, their fundamental ask of us continuously and of themselves is, can I have access to high quality data? And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today for the rest of the thing. So data quality means a lot of things. I mean, it conjures up images in your head, I'm sure. In the context of supply chain, it is about having complete data sets. Do I have the right integrations in place to access the right data at the right time? Do I have high speed data streaming and high quality data streaming? In other words, please don't tell me that the truck has arrived at the loading site when it already has departed. Silly things like that actually can trip you up. Milestones, where is the truck at any given point in time, or where is the ship at any given point in time? And then, of course, the data sets that you curate from it. It's one thing to know that a particular truck was at a particular site, but to have the contextual information that actually it was there to load and not to deliver is important. Contextualization is important. So therefore, how do you get all these data together, contextualize it, and actually have algorithms working on it to provide right insights and right information for you? All of these should be conjuring in your head right now when you think about data quality, but there is no blanket definition of data quality. It is like the famous saying of the beauty in the eye of the beholder. High quality data is what allows you to make the best decision in order to move forward in your supply chain. Basically, that's my definition of a data quality. So let me illustrate the challenge of data quality. So it is one thing for me to list all of those things and say, if I give you a full data set and give you timely information, that should be enough, right? No. What worked yesterday may not work. So this is actually a real case scenario where we are tracking a shipment on, let's call it an FTL shipment that is actually going from point A to point B. As simple a move as possible. Look at the various things that need to come into place in order to know where that shipment is or where that truck is at any given point in time. On one side is the shipper himself or herself, who is actually got all the information like what is the shipment about, where is it going, etc. They work with carriers. Carriers work with subcontractors, so we need that information. We need to know which truck it is that you're going. What is its license plate? Why do we need to know that? That's how we know which specific truck to track for this specific shipment, if you will. Where are they going? What places are they visiting? Which sites are they? Transshipment, only the direct A to B, or are they going via transshipment point? What is the plan? What is the appointment that they have at the designee area, whether it's a warehouse or a store? What time did they say they will arrive, and what time were they given a slot to arrive in? So, and then of course there are the GPS positions that the truck emanates. That's why we need the license plate. All well and good. It's a great thing. Now let's see what could go wrong. First of all, the place could be identified wrongly in your system. You might say this is the latitude, longitude. You may be off by a degree, and suddenly all bets are off. You might have actually very short trips or incorrect sequence of stops. Happens all the time for us. The truck says, I'm going A, B, C, D. Because of traffic jam, they quickly switch at the last minute to A, C, B, D. When that happens, how do you track it? How do you know that it is actually in the right place at the right time? Time slots. Often optimistic time slots are given. Oh, I will arrive by Monday, and they arrive by Friday, as an example. How do you correlate that? How do you make sense of that? Subcontractors. This is a big challenge in this industry. Those of you who are in this industry, you know this very well, that you have a contract with a contractor and you have that, but they use subcontractors, rightfully so. You may not have access to their truck. How do you get hold of that information? Then, of course, the missing telematics. Some trucks, the telematics don't work. Battery may have died. How do you track that? The biggest bane of my existence is when a shipment comes along and I'm given a wrong license number. Not because somebody made a mistake, somebody just got tired and typed 1 instead of 2, for instance, and suddenly I'm tracking the wrong truck. Appointments could be wrong, GPS positions can be awry, they could be pinging off, etc. The point of this is to say that amidst all of those orange boxes which represent continuous noise to one signal that you're looking for, where is my shipment and when is it going to get there? And all I want to know is that so that I can continue with my thing, which is the Renault ask. The challenge is to keep these orange boxes in control at all time. Your ability to do so determines whether you have quality data at hand or not. And the way to do that is, of course, I mean, to bring it all in one place, contextualize it, harmonize this data continuously, and have workflows to fix errors, fix mistakes that happen at all times, so that you are serving that one ask of you, high quality data, converting into high quality prediction of when my shipment is likely to arrive. Is it arriving as I'm expecting it to arrive? So the point of the thing is to say that therefore context is critical, context is important. A lot of things could go wrong. So for you to have a one size fits all approach saying that I have one amazing AI model or an amazing ML machine learning model will not work. Sometimes it is as simple as, not needing a surgeon to cut a ribbon. I don't need machine learning if I'm maybe 20 miles out. I can look at the remaining distance and tell you exactly when I'm going to come there. Leverage that knowledge of the human as well as machine learning at all times to be able to figure out the answers that you're asking to do that. This doesn't mean that AI doesn't have a role to play. Of course it does. We in Shipio have these agents also running around in our platform that answers your questions, etc. But it is not the point of this discussion. AI is important, but the fundamentals of this game have not changed one bit. The questions that are asked in supply chain today, because of the uncertainty and the volatility, the only thing that they can keep their eye on is their shipment. So, where is my shipment? When will it arrive? And can I trust the data that it's telling me that it'll arrive at a certain time? Why? Go back to that Renault example. The reason they are so focused on it, as a manufacturer, they operate just-in-time plants. They get their people to get ready to assemble something, and if a part doesn't arrive, plant goes idle, thousands of euros in direct and indirect costs wasted. Now, it's not just me saying this. Gardner underscores this point very, very strongly. And it's not just in supply chain. Anywhere you go these days, AI is the buzzword. Everybody wants AI. But if you want to employ that, the very first thing you have to do is AI, data quality, and low data quality is one of the biggest challenges that you would have. So the future, in my opinion, and not just in my opinion, actually every informed opinion out there, is to those who are data ready. So as much as supply chain management continues to be that beautiful discipline that came about 50 years ago when it became a formal discipline that we manage with forecasting and optimization, and now with visibility technologies, it is now underscored by data. Data is no longer a technical task. It is actually your strategic advantage. And the fundamental question you have to ask to take care of that strategic advantage is, can I trust my data? So the goal has to be to build these smarter, calmer, and yes, anti-fragile supply chains like Renault has done with their inbound logistics. But they started, and so should you, with high quality data. Everything else is a beautiful first floor balcony with a terrible foundation if you don't focus on your high quality data. That's me, Bob.
Anand, thank you so much for that great presentation. I love that image of the balcony on a bad foundation. It makes me feel a little shaky already. But thank you very much for really driving home the importance, number one, of data, and number two, quality data. So the excellent, excellent presentation. We now move into the panel discussion portion of our presentation, in which I have the privilege of asking Anand a number of questions to help bring out some of the points he was making earlier. And then after that, we'll move into an audience question and answer session. And while we're doing this part of the show, audience members, please feel free to submit your questions at any time during this presentation, and we'll get to them, as many of them we can, at the end of the show. Okay, so Anand, I'm interested in a little bit more definition here of a phrase. The concept of data as a competitive asset. How do you actually see that as redefining supply chain leadership in the next decade?
Excellent start, Bob. Excellent start. As I mentioned in my final slide, data is a strategic asset, right? I mean, so if it is a strategic asset, it automatically becomes a competitive advantage. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that supply chain management has moved from the realm of just moving goods to actually focusing on the movement of data. Let me explain. Obviously, at the end of the day, you plan to move goods from A to B. No question. That is still the physical thing. We are delighted when the Amazon package shows up at our doorstep. That is still there. But the disruptions that are ruling the supply chain disrupt the delivery of that goods to you. And let me give you a statistic that Gartner has put out. Roughly 2 to 3 major incidents take place in every supply chain organization, enough to shake things up a bit. And yet, and that it may say, oh my goodness, but the bigger statistic was less than 12% of supply chain leaders know that's happening.
Hmm.
Let's get our head around it.
Scary
Very
thought.
few supply chain leaders know that major disruptions, 2 to 3 of them a month, are hitting them. So in this case, they're focused on moving the goods. But what they need to focus on, the signals that will tell that the goods may not move like they're thinking. And therefore, the focus has to move from movement of goods. That's why data is a strategic asset. And I mentioned that Renault and every customer of ours, they talk about data as the main thing. We held a customer council saying, let's help you think about a control tower so that we can replicate what we helped Renault with. They all said, great, but let's focus on data. All they wanted to talk about was data, and data as being their competitive thing, saying AI, we don't want AI to steal our data. We want data to be secure. Why? The supply chain leaders of the future are going to be judged not just on how well they move their goods, but their ability to get into the digital realm and actually provide insights, timely information, so that those signals, those orange boxes that I showed, are continuously mitigated on those thousands of disruptions that are taking place on a daily basis. So
That's
it's
a
not
yeah.
it's no longer a statement, it is a thing, it's real.
That's a good corrective. It seems like the conversation around supply chain these days is about AI, AI, and AI, and automation as well. And fine, if the industry wants to focus on these things, it's very important. But is the industry's focus on AI and automation, is it in some ways maybe premature if foundational execution data that you're talking about today is broken? Should companies slow down their digital transformation until they fix this?
It's a fantastic philosophical question, if I may. The answer is yes and no. I'll say this because remember, I mean, supply chain management became a discipline like we think of right now about 40 odd years ago when first forecasting algorithms came about, first inventory optimization techniques were being used, etc. And the same question was asked, hey, if your historical data is not good, is there any value in forecasting? The answer was yes and no. It helped in some, it didn't help in some. Where it helped, it was like, oh my goodness, thank God for that system. So I feel the same about this as well. But the problem between a simple forecasting model of the past and AI and automation of today is you were driving at 20 miles an hour. So if you made a mistake, you still had corrective ability. Now you're constantly driving at 100 miles an hour with AI. A tiny mistake really gets exasperated. And that is the reason why if your fundamental foundational execution data is broken, pause, fix, but don't let perfect become the enemy of the good. Don't try to fix it all. Fix what you can. Leverage automation, AI, solve that. Lessons learned, go to the next one, harmonize these two. Now, one plus one has become three, then go to the next one. So, otherwise, what will happen is you'll become such a laggard that you'll never catch up, and you don't want that. You will not want to die on this altar because this is a fixable altar, but be very smart. Again, that silly example of don't try to build a beautiful balcony without making sure that at least one part of your foundation is solid comes to mind. Fix a little, leverage a lot. Fix a little, leverage a lot. So the answer is yes and no.
Great. Companies love to talk about the word culture, but culture has so many elements to it in the organization, including this concept of data culture. And I'm wondering how you feel organizations can transform their data culture in a way that will treat execution data with the very same importance as financial and customer data.
Absolutely. Um, Again, the beauty of all your questions is they have parallels in history. When CRM came about, when the Salesforce and the Siebels of the world exploded on the earth, they were like, why do I need that? Well, it turns out people can't live without having a comprehensive view of your customer. And funnily enough, your example is solid because your question is solid because you refer to customer. Today, no organization works without fully understanding what their customer is. What is that? Data. So you are doing it. So now step into the realm of supply chains and then therefore ask yourself, why aren't you doing that? If you're focused on, I mean, Amazon is very famous for its significant focus on only one thing, customers, but they translate that focus into sub focuses. And one of their focuses is amazing fulfillment capability, amazing pricing capability, all driven by data. So the culture that you want to have is a data first mindset. Does data support what I'm thinking and not just my gut feel? Can data supplement my phone call to my brother in law who is picking up that goods there on that site? Yes, you still need that human touch, but let data drive you that that is the phone call you need to take and not something else. And that mindset will come if you declare it to be a strategic asset, like I mentioned earlier on. And then you put your heft and muscle behind it by making everybody an owner of it, everybody accountable for it, for their little piece. Going back to your previous question, how do you build a tiny little thing that is perfect and then automate it and go forward? Well, make them stand up on a bench and start screaming, saying, I fixed this and my life has become better for it. Can you now give me a little extra data so it can be better? And oh, by the way, I am producing information that you will benefit from downstream. Let me give it to you. And suddenly this becomes a cultural asset. So find your data champions, live in the data, become a data driven decision making organization like you do with your finance, like you do with your customers. Why are you leaving supply chain behind? Don't.
Yeah. Implicit and explicit in your presentation here today, Anand, is this notion of elevating the topic to higher levels within the organization. I'm wondering, does this require maybe some really bold organizational or structural shifts for companies to stop treating execution data like as an IT problem and instead make it a boardroom priority?
Without a question, it is, my answer will be a continuation of the previous answer
Yeah.
in that if data is a strategic asset, then make it a boardroom priority. Start tracking KPIs, start reporting it, not just to yourself and to your bosses and your teams, but to the board level thing. The structural shift that needs to happen is actually first in the mind. Data is a differentiator. And I am seeing this actually in that customer council that we held in Berlin in June, as I was mentioning to you. The big point that chief executives, not chief executives, but the C-suite of these organizations, chief supply chain officers, VP of supply chains, were saying that we believe our data is our differentiator. We don't want to share it. We don't want to give it away anymore. We want to control it and we want to be able to do what we need to do with that. That's a mindset shift. And that comes top down. And that that shift will be driving that. If you identify this as a differentiator, then you have to do a structural shift to say, how can this be a growth enabler for me in the organization? And anytime you talk about a growth enabler, you need to elevate that position, get somebody in charge of data that is responsible for harmonizing data and breaking silos down. That is, as you very well know, not an easy ask in our world. Silos is how we maintain control and power over our dominion. That has to go away. So somebody with a big stick has to be there. So I actually suggest that you rethink and actually have somebody who is like a chief data officer or a supply chain data officer who is responsible for driving this transformation, structural changes, because this is a board level point of view. You need to be responsible to make sure that the board understands that this is what is driving revenue up, customer satisfaction up, not my ability to negotiate a wonderful contract with a carrier going
Yeah.
forward.
Certainly, we cannot get away from the fact that a supply chain or a logistics network consists of physical assets. You still got to move things in a truck. You got to be in a DC. You got to do all that. But when it comes to supply chain resilience and what it takes to ensure it, I'm wondering if in the future it's going to be more about actually the quality and speed of digital data flows as opposed to physical networks. And if that is the case, how can leaders prepare for this shift?
Spot on. My whole thesis about my presentation was along those lines in the following sense. First of all, you need your physical assets. You need your warehouses, you need your plants, you need your stores, you need those things. Nobody is questioning that. You need that. You need planning. You need to put plans into place. But gone are the days when I was younger. I could plan, go play a round of golf, come back, fix the couple of things that were wrong, and Bob was my uncle, right? I mean, it was all good. Gone are those days. I mean, who knew that our famous philosopher Mike Tyson would be so right that everybody has a plan till they get punched in their mouth, and supply chains
Yeah.
are that boxer stepping into the ring. Every plan goes awry. So plans are still valid, but no longer just as a plan. You need scenario planning around that to say, what if this went wrong? What if that went wrong? What would my response be? That is digital realm. And manufacturing has been doing that with Industry 4.0, for instance. They have created digital models of physical objects to see the quality control aspect of it, etc. So this realm already exists of creating digital twins of your plans to see what could go wrong and have answers ready. That is already stepping into the digital realm. Then your goods are moving, but the information about what is happening to that goods as it's moving is moving at the speed of light. You have to capture that and actually start anticipating that by the time this is going to come to this transshipment point, that's where the storm is likely to move, which means that I need diversion plans in place already. I had no reason to know that a week ago when I put this in place, but suddenly a weather system moved in. Ability to capture that takes you into the digital realm. So the physical aspect of it is well honed, understood, etc. The reason everybody is squirming or freaking out is because they haven't gotten control of the digital realm that is actually driving supply chains. So if you don't understand it, then I'm afraid you're going to fall behind. So get the data, the signals that will help you get into that digital realm. I mean, your thesis is spot on.
You mentioned competitive advantage, which every business likes to talk about. It can be a rather vague term, right up there with motherhood and apple pie. But of course, it's important. But I'm wondering if we could drill down a little bit to what might be the risk to actual competitive advantage if companies continue to ignore this hidden cost of poor execution data. And if that is the fact, can they ever catch up?
I'm one of those people who believes that everybody and everything is redeemable. So
Hmm.
everybody can catch up, but
Okay.
not forever, right? I mean, it's like asking me to run like I used to when I was a kid. I cannot do that anymore. I just can't catch up to that. So there is shelf life to my optimistic statement, I admit. That said, if you risk living with bad execution data, if you risk ignoring the digital realm that your supply chains have moved into, you will be obsolete. Digital obsolescence is the worst thing that can happen to you, and you will fall behind. I mean, there are studies after studies that are showing that while digitization is a very difficult thing to do, I mean, again, Gartner had a study that said those companies that said they would be completely digital in by 2026, 5 years ago, in 2021, halfway through the study, they said 95% of them said they won't be ready. So it is hard. I completely acknowledge it. But you can start. And at the end of the day, digitalization is nothing but getting grip of your data. So, what will go wrong if you don't invest in this? Hidden costs arise. I didn't even know that the disruption took place and that my customer is pissed off and now has gone somewhere else. Loss of customer satisfaction results in loss of revenue. Study after study shows that. If you don't have information, then you can let your plant go idle. If you only knew in time that the shipment was not going to come on time, you could have done something else with that resource. You have opportunity costs, empty shelves, translating into all these hidden costs can be avoided with digitalization and proper data, high quality data driving that. So the cost of not doing anything is obsolescence. I mean, I have no doubt about that. But you're not late. You can get going with that. Start with execution data, though. Don't try to be exotic about metadata and high level data. No, where the rubber hits the road physically and literally is where you capture the information and start making decisions, go upstream with that data, go downstream with that data, and suddenly you are in control of your destiny without a question.
I love your optimism, Anand. There's never too late to
Never
change
too late.
and
Yeah.
and improve. Again, if I could just come back to AI for a moment, because this is what everybody is saying. It's the next wave of supply chain innovation, clearly. At least that's what people say. And I wouldn't want to discount that, but I wonder if the actual breakthroughs that we're paying less attention to is this notion of real-time trusted data management. I mean, and if that's the case, what form might that take that might be the actual breakthrough in supply chain innovation in the years ahead?
I strongly believe that the future of digital software is two things. One, high quality data, and a mechanism by which you can access that data and work with that, whether they are AI agents, whether it's a simple dashboard, or whether it's your ability to download that data into your favorite tool like Excel and work with that, right? So therefore, high quality data and an ability to interact with it. So let's stick with the question that you asked. So let's say the future of software or future of digital software that you have to employ to achieve everything that we've been talking about is high quality data and AI agents that can do things for you with that data. I mean, you can imagine that to be the future. But the foundation of even that future is still going to be data. So I actually think that autonomous data infrastructures is what is going to drive the innovation of the future. So I may not have the ability to look at a data set and say, oh, that data set corresponds with something in that data set. Oh my goodness, if I could just connect those two dots, it unleashes something amazingly new. I may not be able to do that. You might need AI agents to be able to do that. But without those two data sets being there in the first place, this beautiful AI can just keep pinging, pinging, and ponging and going around and saying, can you show me something I can do something with? That's
Mhm.
why this trusted autonomous data infrastructure that is cleaning itself, that is contextualizing itself, that says, oh, I'm missing something. Let me go and ask that to give me that data. Now, whether that it asks an agent to do that, I don't care. But the data infrastructure, trusted, secure, is the future, and that's where the innovation is going to come from. Going back to my previous point, I mean, I am pushing my team. I mean, Laurel can verify that. I am pushing everyone in my company to become very, 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 very data savvy. Now, we are a data company. We are, but I'm saying even more so. Go into the
Well,
depths of data because that's the powerful thing.
let me pick up on that, Anand, because it seems to me that it's possible to talk about data like it's this nebulous thing floating out there with no connection to people. And as this idea of data stewardship becomes central to the success of supply chains, what might this future supply chain leader look like? It's responsible for that. You know, it's a part of technologist, part strategist, part IT, C-level. Who is this person going to be?
So that's the reason I'm so delighted to be in the supply chain world, I tell you, because the future supply chain professionals, leaders, C-suite, will have dream jobs in front of them, in my opinion. And let me explain why. To your first point about humans and data. So let me give you a data set of your favorite item that you know everything about. I give you a stream of data about it saying, hey, this is the sales of your favorite product, Bob. You look at that and you go, oh, why is there a missing piece of information? And I ask you, Bob, can you explain that? Why is that missing? I don't know. I'm a mathematician. I'm looking at that. I'm going, missing data, maybe. And then you can say, hey, that's fine because on that day the store was closed and no sales took place. So it's actually correct that there's nothing there. So don't try to impute anything there, leave it alone. You might say the opposite, saying, oh my goodness, how could somebody miss a zero? It's not 10, it's 100. So human and data, that relationship will never go away. So that's one thing. So this whole notion of AI taking anybody's job, I just don't believe it. The creativity of human beings has to continue. To your question, I genuinely believe, why am I excited about the future of supply chain professionals? I really believe they will be the future Renaissance men and women, polymaths, if you will, who have to be strategic. They have to be strategic to know where they are going and make sense in this extremely fast moving world they have stepped into. If you agree with me that it's all about the digital world and the data, they have to be very data savvy. They can't be scared about downloading a data set and having their favorite LLM to use the favorite LLM to ask questions of it and make conclusions. No, don't hire a data analyst. You can do that. You should be able to do that. They need to be able to make sense of the data and design what next easily. So in other words, they are designers. They continue to be creators. So just just think of what, and they take continuous decisions and
Mhm.
they thrive in uncertainty. They are the future anti-fragile human beings, therefore generating anti-fragile supply chains because they are unbelievably talented digital polymaths, as I call them, Renaissance people, throw them anywhere, they can figure it out and they can make it happen.
Okay, great. Thank you. I do want to know, though, what you think might be some industries or companies that are actually setting the gold standard for data-driven supply chain execution, and what can others learn from them? Can you cite some examples for them?
I gave the example of Renault.
Yeah.
Their entire inbound logistics in their supply chain, their 28 plants managers drive their plants based on data, continuous 24/7. So that's an example. And manufacturing companies have actually been good, right? I also gave the example of the digital twins that they use, etc., and all the data that they use to create digital twins of their physical products, etc. So in retail, of course, the Amazons and the Walmarts who have used data signals for demand-driven decision making. The pricing that you see on Amazon is every data bit informs the pricing decision to make for them when you go next and ask them. So therefore, those are definitely there. High-tech companies like Apple, I mentioned the fact that they use supply chain data to design products. I mean, who would have thought, right? Supply chain data to forecast how much will I sell, but actually they're like, oh, look at how these things are flowing. Where should we make the product to near shore it, etc. They make such strategic decisions with that data. In the FMCG world, I personally know, I read these publications from the likes of P&G and such, who actually are using this to manage inventories and things like that in a very smart way. So there is, and the unifying thing in all of these people, or the common thread in all of these people or all these companies, is strict focus on data quality and data governance, and
Okay,
treating it as an unbelievable strategic asset that they guard very jealously. And then they get to, so we can learn a lot from them without a
great.
question.
Anand, let's bring the audience in now. We have some audience questions already, and even as we are answering the ones that have already come in, audience members are encouraged to continue to submit your questions by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and we will, of course, get to as many of your questions as we can, time permitting. Let's start with this one, Anand. Can you share examples where poor execution data directly led to a major supply chain disruption or failure?
I mean, there are quite a few. I mean, there are some that people will think about, right? The very first time Suez Canal in supply chain became a big topic was when the Evergreen was stuck, and lack of information for those ships that were en route towards Suez Canal didn't stop in time, and then bunching took place, etc. But a very good example that I personally had a chance to talk to with an automotive company in the US was the following. If you remember, there was an incident with a train. Can't remember exactly when, in 2023 or something like that, when in Ohio there was an unfortunate incident when spillage took place and the train was stuck on the track. There was another train, and physical tracks are physical tracks. I mean, once you get on it, you can't make a U-turn. So it was loaded with this automotive companies' goods, parts, etc., that they were expecting in their factory plant somewhere in Ohio, and it set out. Now, if that information about the other train that was blocking the tracks was instantly available, it was quite possible that they would have called the depot and said, hey, where is my goods? On the train. Has the train left yet? No, don't let the train leave. It can't get anywhere. Stop it. I'm sending my trucks to pick up those parts. And yes, it'll cost me more. Yes, I'll burn more carbon than I wanted to, but I got this an emergency. At least my plants will be active. So therefore, certain times, certain very well-known examples like that do exist. But besides those, I'll give you, the lack of important information in the hands is like a death by thousand cuts in supply chain. Very trivial example. If a shipment got delivered and the carrier forgot to capture the proof of delivery, invoice comes into the hands of the hapless financial analyst at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, where invoices are piled up, and she, poor thing, has to go through them quickly and release them. Half of them are missing their PODs, proof of delivery. She can't reconcile the invoice and she's stuck. So what happens? Because by law, by the agreement she has to release, she releases it. A lot of times losing revenue. She could have challenged it, saying, no, that didn't happen, this happened. She can't, and really revenue leakages take place. So yes, those big ones are interesting, but little things like missing proof of delivery, missing customs document in your thing as you're crossing a border, cost you a lot more on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis, tiny thousand cuts. that
and
you
add
can.
up and multiply throughout. You're sort of describing a version of the bullwhip effect when it comes down to actual delivery processes. Interesting. This questioner wants to know how you see the role of emerging technologies like blockchain or
Mm.
digital twins. We haven't talked about those specifically yet today in improving real-time execution data.
So it's a conundrum to me as to why blockchain hasn't completely taken hold of in supply chain. Remember, the promise of blockchain is its immutability and therefore the ability for divergent participants having trust in each other, right? I mean, that's the whole point of this. And if you think about supply chain, if there is one industry where people who don't know each other trust in each other and the supply chains hum along, suppliers to manufacturers to distributors to warehouse managers to store owners to etc., carriers who are carrying all these things. So I'm a bit surprised that it hasn't taken hold of yet. But I genuinely believe that when the time comes, this will become a big thing where contracts are immutable and they can be stored easily, payments can be made easily, cashless supply chains can become a reality, payments can be, with zero time down, all those things can happen. So I do see them coming. That said, this technology has been around and hasn't come yet, so I have to dig deep into why that isn't the case. But from a pure technology question point of view, I don't see why not. We can definitely do that. We just have to jump into it. It does need standards, though. All of us need to. If there's one thing about our industry, we are quite fragmented. If you just look at the road thing, okay, marine, there are a handful of about a dozen or so major ocean carriers who can agree. Even they don't agree to standards. It's just about now that they're agreeing to standards. That's the trouble in blockchain. Digital twins is much more interesting though. I mean, digital twins is here and now. We can do this. The reason digital twin is a technology that has been existing for the last 30, 40 years hasn't quite taken off is because of lack of data. That problem is solved thanks to companies like ours. We actually are able to provide all the data you need. So I gave the example of a plan. Well, don't just publish a plan. Plan and publish a plan B, plan C, plan D in case something goes wrong. That is a digital twin activity where you are creating scenarios by simulating different things that can go wrong and answering if this happens. So then a disruption takes place. Somebody says, guys, isn't that scenario 52 that we practiced? Let's just execute it. We don't have to call our chief supply chain officer, Bob, to ask him. That already, we know the answer. So decision making becomes very decentralized, both with blockchain, but definitely with digital twins as well, if done well.
Kind of a
So I
distributed
have
playbook of,
huge hope for them, huge
yeah,
hope for them.
interesting. You did just mention marine, which fits in perfectly with this next audience question, and that is how AI can help us with ocean shipments. And maybe we broaden that to just talk about the whole data issue as well when it comes to ocean.
Absolutely. I mean, we track ocean shipments, so we know quite a bit about the data vagaries that can be. I'll tell you how AI is going to help. I mean, clearly, the biggest challenge that ocean shipments have is that the vessels have become the shipping companies have become very good at publishing their schedules and then being able to say, hey, we will be arriving at that port at so and so time if there's a transshipment, etc. So all that is good. But recently, at the beginning of the year, all alliances came apart and new alliances have come. So suddenly the hub and spoke system of somebody just went out of the window and suddenly all the flows went out of whack and
Yeah.
therefore all the data that was driving decision making around those flows went out of whack. So something like having the robust data information and machine learning would definitely help there. But the biggest challenge that our shippers have is that when the ship sets sail, say from Shanghai towards Rotterdam, for 30, 40 days it's out in the sea, there is, hey, we have set sail is the only update they get till 7 days to go. In the middle, they are all worried about what's going on. So therefore, that's where tracking low orbit satellite signals, the AIS signals, and being able to give information about where the ship is and hence where the container is becomes very, very important. But here is where I think AI is going to help ocean shipments significantly. More than the road shipments, I road shipments too, but more than the road shipments, external risk factors affect ocean shipments a lot more. All it
Yeah.
takes is for an engine to go out in the middle of the sea and big waves to come in, weather patterns move in. Suddenly, a port gets massively congested, and suddenly you have to drop anchor a few miles off the coast. All these things, AI can actually correlate to your specific shipment, and then if you allow it, recommend what else could you do. Now, if a container is stuck on a ship in the middle of the sea, it's Mission Impossible, call Tom Cruise. But for everything else, you can leverage AI to say, okay, what else could I be doing, etc. So yes, there
Yeah.
is quite a bit of, because of the lead times in that industry, AI can help a lot.
Okay. Here's a good question we haven't really talked about. Are there any regulatory or compliance risks that are tied to poor execution data that companies should be more aware of?
Absolutely. In fact, I would give you a very simple example. I mean, these days it's fallen off the fashion wagon a little bit, but sustainability is still important. Scope 3 emissions, controlling that is still important for a lot of companies, and particularly in Europe, where it is the law. The EU has a regulation that you have to follow with. So reporting sustainability, your Scope 3 emissions is absolutely a regulatory requirement. And if you don't have accurate data, you may overstate your. In fact, we have seen that. Before we came along, they were overstating because they were using gross approximations as opposed to very specific granular level information to calculate the exact emissions connected to a shipment. Similarly, custom declarations. I was saying ECMR regulations have come about where a truck crossing border, even in Europe, the driver on their mobile phone has to have a full bill of lading of everything that's in the back of the truck. All of those you can run afoul of if you are not having handle on the execution data. So yes, there are cases where you have to be careful.
Okay. Question here, again, AI just keeps coming up here, and I guess I can understand why, but how can organizations integrate AI into supply chain operations in a way that enhances human roles rather than replacing them? Of course, that is one of the big concerns about AI these days. And what strategies can be used to upskill existing personnel for this shift?
Okay. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I know that we are coming against the clock, so I'll try to be very, very brief. First of all, I genuinely don't believe that humans will be replaced by AI. What AI will do is serve up the right information at the right time in your hands and leave you to make the decisions that it can't make. It'll be smart enough to know, I can't make this decision. Do that. Now, you need to put guardrails in AI. You can't let it hallucinate and imagine that it's the king of the world. Absolutely. Assuming that you've put safeguard rails in your both in your data and in your AI, it'll enhance your ability to make those decisions. It'll help you be way more strategic than you are today. It'll help you make much more independent than you are today. Today, a disruption takes place. Your instinct is to run to your boss. You don't have to. AI can be helpful towards you, but you still need to make a call on what needs to happen. AI will help you decentralize so that everything doesn't need to be centralized. We live in a remote world. I need all the help I can while working remotely and yet feel part of the collective. AI can help us do that. The skill sets that you need to be is, for goodness sake, you got to become data savvy. You have to be business savvy, but you've got to be data savvy. There is just no escaping that. I don't want you to go out and learn AI. That is easy. If you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, you already know how to use AI. I'm not too worried about that.
Mhm.
Google, etc., will take care of you for that. But your data is your data. Nobody else can own that. So you need to become data savvy. You shouldn't be afraid of data anymore. Data is no longer just for math nerds like me. It's for everyone. Make it democratic, make it available, make it digestible. And that is the fundamental skills that I'll ask you to fundamentally do, and
Okay,
trust
great.
it. Trust it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, this has been such a great presentation. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time. We have time for just one final question, Anand. And
Yeah.
here it is. If you had to advise a CEO today on one bold move to future-proof their supply chain against data quality risks, what would it be?
Data is your growth enabler, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO. Do not underestimate its power to turn your organization into a leading company in the world. So elevate it, give it the mandate it needs, make it a board visible function, give it budgets, etc. Launch your SCDO movement right now. Supply Chain Data Officer, call it whatever you want. I like to call it SCDO. If your two takeaways from this entire conversation between Bob and me, high data quality, SCDO. You need somebody who can harmonize, break the silos, bring in the data driven culture, enable your skill sets to live in the data world and not be afraid and make data driven decisions. So, takeaway is invest in your SCDO today.
This has been such a great presentation talking about the most important thing that underlies all supply chains, and that is data, and more specifically, quality data. So thank you, Anand Metapoli. Thank you so much for that presentation. Audience as well, thank you for sitting in, for your great questions, and for your attention. Got a couple of assets for you here, audience. Here we have a white paper, Navigating Disruptions Effectively, talks about that, and also a free workshop on unlocking your supply chain's full potential. A couple of QR codes you can take a quick shot of if you have time in these last few seconds, but if you don't worry about it. That will all be sent to you, attendees, at the end of this presentation, which is now. Once again, Anand, I want to thank you so much. Audience, thank you. Everybody, have a great day.